You are.
All right.
We are live. I'm a little late, but we're live.
We forgive
I'm
you.
running. I just took a little jog to the house. Had to put the dog up outside because Rodney's scared of him.
I thought you went to go change shirts. You said you didn't look good, but we've come back, and I think you look worse now than you did when you first went in there.
Well, I was trying to find a green to blend into the wall, but it wasn't dark enough. I didn't want anybody to see me.
Didn't you think he was going to pretty up some?
A little bit. You know, I thought the first shirt, you know, he was like, he's like, all right, everybody, get yourselves looking good, dress nice. He comes in showing off his big old muscles that the rest of us don't have.
I thought at least a collar, right? Or something.
Something like that. Look, you look good, though. I like the...
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
Rodney always looks good, man. He's a politician. That's what they do.
That's a
Retired. He's a retired politician
Don't
now.
cuss me like that.
He looks like
anymore.
the CEO of Ketchup and Mustard right now.
That was quick. I like that. I know I won't have to be on my feet. I watched you guys yesterday. I'm really quite impressed the way y'all interacted with each other, and the talking points were excellent, guys. So I'm going to do everything I can just to keep up, all right? So
All right.
y'all may
It's a
have to
fun
lift me
show.
up at times.
Well, this is the first, I guess we're just going to call it Pendulum Podcast. It's streaming on my channel. It's streaming on Pendulum channel. Hopefully we can build that thing up and get everything going. What we're going to do, the structure is basically going to be, I have a story, Josh has a story, and Rodney has a story. And then we have a main idea that we're going to cover. That idea today is going to be the Trump administration. And we're going to kind of go through and compare and contrast that with the Biden administration. Do either one of you want to start on your story?
I can go first because the topic I picked was a little bit like less political and more just like topical. You know, if we're going to be talking news, it's going on right now. There was that crash in D.C. In the, Potomac River, where a Black Hawk helicopter crashed into a jet carrying a bunch of, as far as I know now, is just like a normal, like it wasn't political people or anything. It was like mostly ice skaters and stuff like that.
I saw an interview with Nancy Kerrigan who talked
Right.
a lot about it.
Right. And I thought we could talk about that because when we got together and first had a lunch discussing doing this podcast, we talked a little bit about conspiracy theories because, as you know, Zeb and myself are a little bit more accepting of conspiracy theories, and you were kind of drilling us on how much we're willing to accept, like the believability of it. Mm-hmm. And the reason I thought like this, I would bring up this topic and tie it into that and kind of the main theme for today's show was because like I've been seeing a ton of people talk conspiracies about it already. Mm-hmm. And I think I'm open-minded. There could be some mischievous plot behind this or malicious plot behind this, but from based on what I know right now, I'm going to say I'm not sure about that. I wanted to get your opinion and your opinion.
Well, if we can, have a clip loaded up for you.
Let's do it.
In the first video, the Black Hawk can be seen flying at speed over the Potomac from the left side of the screen. The American Airlines plane can be seen flying towards the airport before the two collide, causing a mid-air explosion and fall into the river. In the second video, you can see the Army helicopter and American Airlines plane travel toward each other. After the collision and subsequent explosion, the airliner can be seen spinning into the water, and the Black Hawk is also seen falling into the water.
Well,
Into the water.
first of all, the first video cameraman's pretty bad. At least put the crash in the middle of the screen.
Yeah, and it looked like both videos were taken like cell phone footage from a computer screen. They're both like very poor quality. But I guess the reason I thought, I mean, obviously we're talking about that crash, so it helps to have that visual. But something I want to point out conspiracy theory wise that I don't buy yet, and I want to get y'all's opinion on this. But from what I saw, people initially were saying it looks like the helicopter changed its path to hit the plane. And I selected this video to show us because it's zoomed in, the quality's been enhanced professionally to the degree that it can be. And it looked like they just kind of hit each other. I think based off of that alone, it's not enough to convince me of a conspiracy theory. And I think this may just be an accident.
I know you work early mornings, but I've been keeping up with it a little bit. The helicopter was flying over what the FFA regulations were, and it took a straight line for that airplane. You can see it on a map overview. I don't have that to pull up right now.
When you say it was over, you mean like it was not where it should be?
I think it was either 300 or 400. It was 300 or 400 feet, or 300 or 400 feet that helicopters were supposed to be flying.
It was in the red, not the green,
and it was above.
Okay,
It was way above that.
Gotcha.
And then the overview of it, the trajectory was a straight line, straight to the planes. And I think there was early reporting that that maybe that same helicopter or another Black Hawk was aimed at another airplane that had to dodge said helicopter earlier this week, I believe. Something to that effect is crazy. They've released 2 pilots' names. They haven't released one of them. I don't know why they're withholding the third pilot's name. Maybe little DEI there or something. What do you think, Josh?
Why they're not releasing the name of the pilots? That it was a Black Hawk helicopter. I know it had, it was military personnel, no doubt. They said that the destination, or it was, I heard, I don't know if this is true or not. This may or may not be verified. Maybe you can help with that. But I heard it was flying from the CIA building to the Pentagon. So I'm sure we don't know where to it was flying, but we are okay. It is confirmed that flew from CIA headquarters. Okay, that's what I heard. So building. Maybe someone important was in the helicopter, or maybe there could be any number of reasons why that's being kept from us, and I'm not that less concerning to me. I don't know. Well, Rodney, you've been in that area when something happens like this, where military has I think they initially qualified it as a training operation or training casualties. What happens up there? Well, not so much when I worked for the congressman, but I was stationed at Quantico, and we went into D.C. quite often in all those areas. And I do know that is a common flight path of helicopters. And to your point, they're supposed to fly much lower, and that's what they led that to, because it was flying much higher than it normally does. Another quick point, though, this video, that's a testament to how many people's out and about now. How was that video shot? Was it off a camera of a building, or was it individuals? Do you have any idea where the origin of those videos come from? I would suspect that was CCTV footage, because it wasn't shaky. And like, what was it, like 8 p.m. this happened? Who's like filming? But why were they recording it then? Well, it's CCTV. I think they have it. It may have been a news camera. You know how news like in New York, you see these skyline shots. They have cameras like at the beach. They keep everything, 24-hour right footage. Yeah, exactly. Everything's filmed nowadays. And that's what I was asking, if it was a legitimate camera on the side of a building, or was somebody out there just shooting that. I don't know. I've got conspiracies of my own. That are if it were handheld, if it were obviously handheld, I'd probably lean more towards like, why would they be filming this what are you doing, standing on top of a parking garage filming it? Yeah. But my point is that let's throttle back. Now everything's Jib. I think, and look, many of my friends are most of my friends are conspiracy theorists, but sometimes things just happen. I think we're all. Until you get all the information, I'm always delaying claiming conspiracy. If you're not a conspiracy theorist at this point, what are you doing, man? Get your head out of the sand. No, I take them each at their own merit. I do too, but it's a pejorative. So everything's not a conspiracy, though. Everything is not. Before we move on, I want to say this though, because Dave from my job, he had a theory that I actually think makes a lot of sense. He was talking about how in the what do you call it, like the FAA, like they record all their conversations, right. The tower and whatnot. When he talks to the helicopter, he says, "Are you aware of flight so-and-so?" And the guy goes, "Yes." He says, "Yes, I'm aware of it. I have visual." And there's in the zoomed out video, you can see there's actually a plane departing the airport at the same time. My coworker, he suggested that maybe because if I'm the helicopter pilot, I'm flying this direction. The jet plane that I'm about to hit is coming this way, and the jet plane that is leaving is that way. If the air traffic controlman said, "Are you aware of flight so and so?" And if it was vague enough to where he didn't know, it wasn't like he didn't give a direction or anything. He may have seen that outgoing flight and thought the air traffic controlman was talking about that one, and it actually directed his attention to that flight while the other one was incoming. And in the video, there's the jet shows up as this super bright light, but that's because the jet is actually facing the camera. It's possible that like the way the helicopter and the jet were coming at each other, it wouldn't be as visible to the helicopter pilot based on where they were as it is to us.
Because those helicopters, they're very mobile. They can change direction pretty quickly, can't they?
I mean, I would think so. I've flown in a couple of helicopters, not at high speeds or anything, but yeah, I mean they're fairly agile. I would think. I think it might have been they said it was a Black Hawk. I feel like it was a cargo helicopter. I don't know. We'll get more information as it come out. At end of the day, conspiracy theorists is going to be right. So.
We'll have a chance.
I don't know about it.
We'll have a chance
Maybe.
on a
We'll
later
see.
broadcast to see who shines on
Maybe
this
a
one.
little while from now, things will come out.
I'm saying no to conspiracy, so time will reveal the trend, and then we'll accept your apology.
All right.
Before we move, I want to ask you: are there any conspiracy theories you do believe?
None comes to mind, but certainly I do. I don't have my head in the sand. Especially as it deals with politics, knowing, what I found out, guys, in local government when I was a mayor. Maybe there's one layer to peel back. Then in state government, you got you've heard me say this before, maybe 3 or 4 layers. But with the federal government, you never know. I mean, that onion just keeps peeling until you really know what the real issue is.
You mentioned House of Cards before we started this thing,
yeah.
and you talk about onions and layers at the federal government. How accurate? I guess it's an odd question to ask. How accurate is House of Cards to the dynamics that go on in DC?
So I will say, and I watched it. It was some time ago, and then with my little bit of time that I spent in D.C., I would say there's some accuracy to it because there's no limit. These guys holding on to these seats, there's truly no limit to what men and women, no limits on what they'll do to keep those seats. So as it pertains to that, I would say House of Cards was probably pretty accurate. Now I don't think somebody's going to remember when they pushed the young reporter in front of the train.
Yeah, I mean they would never drown their chef in a pond out by the.
Yeah, no, I'm glad you think that's too far too.
They would never do that. I mean, committing suicide with 2 bullets to the back of the head is that's pretty difficult, I would think.
Well, it's so interesting that whole thing was not to go down the rabbit hole that it was filmed in it was South Carolina, a congressman from South Carolina, although it was not a autobiography or anything, but it was all that took place in South Carolina. The congressman, anyway.
House of Cards was?
Yeah.
Kevin Spacey was a South Carolina congressman?
Yeah.
I need to go back and watch it.
I thought it was Kentucky.
I thought it was. I thought it was all based on South
It
Carolina.
might- it
Because they
might
talking
be.
about Gaffney.
He has
so
an
often.
accent.
I think
He's
it was
got this
It might have
accent.
been.
I
It might
think
have
it was.
been.
I think.
We'll have to revisit that one. We'll do a House of Cards breakdown.
Okay.
If Kevin Spacey wasn't a pedo, we'd still have more series to watch. But if you want to jump into yours, Rodney, talk about a little bit of an age difference there.
Yeah, indeed I will. So, guys, I do love the media. I love the press and things of that nature. And, as we watched over the past couple of years, the different press secretaries that have donned the White House and the difference in them, I'm struck by this young girl, Caroline Levitt. Is that how you say that, guys?
I think so.
I'm just really impressed with this girl. I think she's setting a tone, an agenda. She's unapologetic. And this is what impresses me so much. Earlier, you told me you were 27. I don't recall how old you are, Zev. How old are you?
Getting older. Older.
Do tell.
I'm 30. I'm 32.
Okay, all right.
I feel 55 sometimes.
So this young lady is 27 years old. We spoke about that. She's your age. You have unreal talents, and I'm so impressed with the youth today. But by the bearing's a word that we use in the Marine Corps. This girl so far, and I know the jury's still out, but she's got unreal bearing for that age. And, I'm just excited to see how she keeps people in check. She's unapologetic, and I like that because the country's spoken. This is our direction, and that's what she said in her.
Well, how many press conferences have we had? Two so far.
I think about two. I know she had an initial one, and there might have been one after.
Well,
that.
I have a clip of one of those real quick.
Illegal criminals. And if you are an individual, a foreign national, who illegally enters the United States of America, you are, by definition, a criminal. And so therefore, you are subject to deportation.
I apologize for interrupting. So to be clear, it's not violent criminals do not receive precedence in terms of the deportations taking place.
The president has also said two things can be true at the same time. We want to deport illegal criminals, illegal immigrants from this country, but the president has said that, of course, the illegal criminal drug dealers, the rapists, the murderers, the individuals who have committed heinous acts on the interior of our country and who have terrorized law-abiding American citizens, absolutely, those should be the priority of ICE, but that doesn't mean that the other illegal criminals who entered our nation's borders are off the table.
Caroline, on immigration. Of the 3,500 arrests ICE has made so far since President Trump came back into office, can you just tell us the numbers? How many have a criminal record versus those who are just in the country illegally?
All of them, because they illegally broke our nation's laws and therefore they are criminals as far as this administration goes. I know the last administration didn't see it that way, so it's a big culture shift in our nation to view someone who breaks our immigration laws as a criminal, but that's exactly what they are. Christian Daycock.
Thanks, Caroline. Just real quick, you mentioned the inflation executive order the president signed, but egg prices have skyrocketed since President Trump took office. So what specifically is he doing to lower those costs for Americans?
Really glad you brought this up, because there is a lot of reporting out there that is putting the onus on this White House for the increased cost of eggs. I would like to point out to each and every one of you that in 2024, when Joe Biden was in the Oval Office, or upstairs in the residence sleeping, I'm not so sure, egg prices increased 65% in this country. We also have seen the cost of everything, not just eggs. Bacon, groceries, gasoline have increased because of the inflationary policies of the last administration. As far as the egg shortage, what's also contributing to that is that the Biden administration and the Department of Agriculture directed the mass killing of more than 100 million chickens, which has led to a lack of chicken supply in this country, therefore a lack of egg supply, which is leading to the shortage. So I will leave you with this point. This is an example of why it's so incredibly important that the Senate moves swiftly to confirm all of President Trump's nominees, including his nominee for the United States Department of Agriculture, Brooke Rollins, who is already speaking with Kevin Hassett, who's leading the economic team here at the White House, on how we can address the egg shortage in this country. As for costs, I laid out the plethora of ways that President Trump has addressed saving costs for the American people over the past week. He looks forward to continuing to doing that in the days ahead. Thank you guys.
Great clip, Zeb. I appreciate you putting that up there. You know, guys, you see how poised she is, and yet she's not demeaning like the previous secretary was. I felt like she was very demeaning in a lot of spots, but you can see she's taken on, I think all of the confirmations you'll see, they take on Trump's personality because that's what they believe. So I'm excited. She's going to show strength. And again, 27 years old with that kind of poise and that kind of bearing is, I'm impressed. What about you guys?
Absolutely. I think there's a common theme throughout Trump's picks, and that is that they have potential, a lot of potential. You know, I might not agree with them on initial setup, but, you know, for instance, J.D. Vance, I didn't agree with that nomination or that pick, but I'm coming around very quickly on a J.D. Vance. Josh?
Personally, I don't think 27-year-olds are qualified to do anything.
It says a 27-year-old.
Yeah, exactly. But she's cute. That I'm sure that didn't play a factor into it, you know.
Well, Trump's real good at picking those. I mean, you look at Carrie Lake; they doll her up and put her in a military uniform.
But I think she did very well. I mean, of course, the press secretary job, it's important, no doubt, but like it is a performance-based thing. So with that in mind, you know, I think she did really well. I mean, people, what was Biden's press secretary?
Karine Jean-Pierre.
Yeah, Karine Jean-Pierre. Everyone like would dog on how bad she was, like how she would shirk questions and whatnot. And I get like, obviously to make Biden look good, she didn't do a good job, but I actually think she did her job.
I thought she was good too. She was just on the wrong team. She just had to promote all the bad stuff.
Like,
I thought she did.
If she knew the subjects, which she clearly didn't, she actually probably would have done quite well.
Yeah.
But that being said, I think this girl, she's going to do fine.
Let me tell you what else I like about her, though, and you could probably say this about all of Trump's appointments. We'll talk about DII, I'm sure, at some point. But this is the most diverse group you'll find, and all their background seems to be kind of like entrepreneurship. For instance, she comes from a family. Her dad and mom owned an ice cream shop and a used truck dealership. So, she's not some snooty living in the uptown area. I mean, she has real roots, and I think you can say that about really a lot of his nominations. And we spoke about this a little earlier when he came in. We didn't have much time to talk previous to this, but she's married to a man that's 32 years her senior. I guess 59 years old, right?
Yeah, he's up there.
And I say that to say this, he's a real estate developer, I believe, but that lends to maturity too. I mean, if you attracted a man that was 32 years your senior, obviously there was a lot of substance there already. So I think
there's a lot of substance.
there's a good many ways we could take that.
I'm trying to be a good influence on you young bucks, and you just keep
you're trying to give her the benefit of the doubt. And I think that's fine. I think we should give a little bit of leeway to some of these picks and let them go. Obviously, we don't have direct influence on them, so I'd say give them a week, 2 weeks. Just like, we should have gave J.D. Vance maybe a week, 2 weeks.
Yeah,
we're only 2 weeks into this administration, man. It's been a fireball 2 weeks.
No one's going to be squeaky clean.
And it's an impressive stable, though. When you look at these, I mean, it's so different than your ordinary picks. It's an impressive stable to me. I think it's a great illustration of what he's going to do. I mean, these are stallions wanting to come out the gate. And I think they're going to be unapologetic, and quite frankly, we should be unapologetic. And I like her because, I mean, she's the face of the president. I mean, she's going to speak more than anybody. We're going to see her more than anybody, and I think she does a good job at exuding the agenda, so to speak.
Well, speaking on just press secretaries in general, I think even Trump's first administration with Kellyanne Conway and
Huckabee
Sarah Huckabee Sanders, and there was another one.
One turned coat. Remember what was?
Oh man, I forgot about that.
She went to Fox, didn't she?
Yeah.
Oh man, why am I blanking on this?
She became very much a critic, but I can't recall her name either.
I can see her face.
She the
man.
blonde one?
They're all blonde, dude. But anyway, I think she's going to be a good press secretary. We'll see how
verdict's
how
still
long
out.
that lasts.
Still early. The verdict's still out on.
But the potential's there for sure.
Yeah, potential's there.
I know Josh wants to. You don't have too much.
Yeah, I noticed that too. He's not as sold on her as we are.
He's keeping quiet over there. Go ahead, lay it out there. That's what we're here for.
I mean,
bring it, man.
I just think like she hasn't done. I'll be honest. That clip you showed me was the first thing I've seen from her. I didn't see like the full conference. I didn't see any clips. So I hold my reservations. That being said, does a 27-year-old pretty girl go for a 61-year-old guy because he has got a great personality, or because he probably played a hand in making her the White House press secretary?
Well, she did work for his administration when he ran for Congress.
She was She was the campaign
manager for his congressional
press.
The husband or Trump?
No,
the husband.
She was
the husband.
No, she was.
She was
the secretary for his campaign.
For his campaign, right?
Yeah.
Trump or the husband?
Trump.
For Trump. Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, I'm being.
I thought it was the husband.
No, I think she was.
Okay.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Yeah, like
anyway, there's connections all up there in D.C. There's so much intertwined going on. Like you just mentioned House of Cards, dude. It's all one big.
But
like
she does have some experience because she did run for Congress. Did you know that?
I'm not.
Okay, maybe that's
she ran for Congress. She won the Republican nomination, but she lost against a Democrat.
Kind of like what I was saying about the Black Hawk conspiracy theory. I think just on what I know, it's too soon for me to say for sure.
Yeah.
She seems good though. I like her.
That's a mature stance.
Yeah.
It is.
Good job, Josh.
Thank you.
You don't know everything.
I was just,
As Ken Ard would like to say.
I was,
Yeah,
I was
it's-
firing out the blocks maybe to get more views.
Yeah, but in that clip, she was harping on immigration and the border, and that's really top of mind of almost everybody right now because we have ICE raids going on, deport the worst offenders is kind of how they're taking that, and that's probably how it should go. Prioritize who is that, and we have the Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth went on Fox News this morning and kind of touched on that a little bit.
Cartels have been declared terrorist organizations. And if you find that, and we know if there's Al Qaeda, we're going to hit them. I don't care if you're in Somalia, Sudan, or in Syria. If we find that they continue to fire at our border control and they continue to put fentanyl into our country, as the Secretary of Defense, are you permitted now to go after them in Mexico or wherever they are?
Brian, I don't want to get ahead of the president, and I won't. That's ultimately going to be his decision. But let me be clear, all options will be on the table. If we're dealing with what are designated to be foreign terrorist organizations who are specifically targeting Americans on our border, and we're finally securing our border. We've been securing other people's border for a very long time. The military is shifting toward an understanding of homeland defense on our sovereign territorial border. That is something we will do and do robustly. So we're already.
So he says all options are on the table. I mean, what does that mean? If we're going to try to stop immigration, or you could call it invasion, we're going to try to stop the cartels, this war on drugs that we've been losing for 30 years. All options are on the table. I'm thinking tier 1 assets. I'm thinking send in the SEAL team. At this point, almost flatten it, dude. What is it going to take
the cartels
to stop all of it? The question is, what is it going to take to secure our southern border? I know we've had, Colombia want to buck up a little bit. We've had Mexico kind of do a little pushback on tariffs. This is a real issue, and again, it's a war we've been losing for 30 years. I want to kind of hone in on that. All options are on the table. What do you think he means by that?
So I'm a little unsure, but here's what I do like about it. I think it's a very clear message, and I think doing these initial things that he's doing is sending a message, and I think it's going to deter a lot of folks because I think some of these foreign leaders, they say, look, there's no limit with this guy. We're going to have to tread lightly. So I believe right now these early things are just messages that hopefully will lend to us, being successful.
The option of actually doing something instead of just saying that we will. I think that's a theme throughout Trump's first administration and hopefully the second administration is the threat of something actually happening compared to the last 4 years.
Well, I mean, when it comes to this, we talk about like how are we going to get rid of the cartels? Well, it's the mansion in the middle of the jungle. They're probably not that hard to find. But on top of that, it's like Trump's been doing a lot of good stuff since he's been in. It's been what, 2 weeks? He's been doing a lot of great stuff. But it's executive orders. Yes. A lot of the executive orders that he's put through are things he did in his first term that were immediately undone by Biden. That's why I think in his first term, when he was talking about building a border wall, that's actually more important than like deporting people, because deporting people is irrelevant if they're just going to keep flooding in. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So, but a border wall, no one's going to tear that down. The next, if he completes a border wall, the next Democratic administration, they're not going to come in with a wrecking ball and knock it down. That's basically a permanent solution. And yes, like, are people going to climb it? Of course. But it's going to greatly deter what we saw in the last 4 years, which was these enormous caravans coming through with all types of people, old, young, elder, injured, whatever. So I think the wall is what I want to see the most, as opposed to, because the cartel didn't exist 500 years ago. If you kill all the drug dealers and the organization, in time it'll rekindle itself. The cartel in of itself will exist period, no matter what. Even if you cut the head off the snake, so to speak.
You mean
so?
Defund CIA?
Yeah, I was like, for Rodney's sake, I wasn't gonna bring that up, but yeah,
be gentle with me.
Well, yeah, you know, you're exactly right. You know, I wouldn't say they can't tear the border down. I wouldn't see if they wouldn't. I'm sure they could make something happen. I mean, it's like they're trying to sell the material that we've already bought at a penny of what we initially bought it for. The border wall is very important. The presence is very important. And the threat of actually doing something is very important. I think all those things mixed together is a huge deterrent. It's going to go a long way. But I do think, you know, I think we almost probably might need to go a little scorched earth on this one, man. I wouldn't mind seeing, you know, sending in some Rangers, some Green Berets, some Tier 2 to go combat cartels. I mean,
I definitely want to see that. I just don't think if at the end of the 4 years, if that's the only thing we've done, it's cool, it's awesome, and it definitely would have made some change, but I don't think the kind of meaningful change we'd like to see.
And listen here, Devil Dog. Let's go back to history. what
history? Hey, send me in, sir.
So Devil Dog is what we use. Marine Corps call each other Devil Dogs because the Germans call us Devil Dogs. But let's rely on some history here. Back when in the war when we went over to Okinawa, Marines couldn't even fight those Okinawas because of all the tunnels. You've been to Okinawa? I've been there.
Flatten it.
Back to the cartel. How do you even find the cartel? I mean, they'll be just like when we fought over in Okinawa, trying to find the enemy. We couldn't find them.
Well, I would have to say that a lot of the cartel is mercenaries. A lot of that cartel is prior U.S. military that went over there and they are offered money to go.
I think that's a conspiracy theory.
You think so? If I wasn't married and didn't have a kid, I'm not saying I wouldn't
Depends on
do
who
it.
wrote it.
That's true too.
I mean, you know, Operation Fast and Furious is real, and it's a parallel to the cartels. Operation Fast and Furious being, you know, the government running guns to the cartels, whereas you know, when we talk about this, we're talking about cartels bringing things in. So there's a connection there. I don't know, man. I think the cartels are important to get after. I think the border is important to get up. But he also mentioned securing our border in comparison to us spending so much money and securing other borders. I think either him or Trump mentioned actually building our own Iron Dome.
Mm-hmm.
You know, why not? If we're sending billions of dollars to other countries to secure their border, whether that's fight war, build a border in Ukraine or Israel or wherever it is, why should we not secure our own border? Is that not what America government is supposed to do?
Well, 100%. And the thing I like about Donald Trump, from what I've seen in his first term and even now, is he's treating other countries in light of how the relationship between the United States and the world has been under Obama and George Bush and whoever. He's treating them in a way that I think is appropriate, to where, you know, what he did with Colombia, the Colombian president or prime minister, whatever you call it, he basically refused to accept the illegal immigrants that we were sending back to them. Well, Donald Trump went scorched earth, threatened them, and they immediately, capitulated. Now, the Democrats immediately went out and said, well, he's alienating our allies. I think if they're really our allies, they're taking advantage of our generosity. If it were the other way around and it weren't political expedient for them to help us, they wouldn't do it. And like you brought up with the Iron Dome was created by Israel to defend themselves from outside invasion. But the technology was invented with money given to them by us. And for a long time, they refused to share it with us because they didn't want the secret to get out. They were afraid it might get leaked through us or whoever. But I think it's for us to say, well, it's our money. We're going to take it whether you like it or not.
Well, if I'm not mistaken, you know, we give a lot of money to other countries for their defense. And I'm pretty sure almost all of those come with a caveat that money must be spent on U.S. companies or U.S. defense R&D to make that happen. And I think Israel is the only one that doesn't have to spend that money in the U.S., or at least a portion of it. And that might be a caveat to why they didn't want to share the Iron Dome technologies with us.
But maybe that agreement needs to be revisited.
You know what I like about this administration is, I felt like when Biden came in, he just flew by his pants. Think about how much thought has been put for months now in Trump taking over. For instance, you just said moments ago, when we sent back the immigrants and they weren't going to comply, immediately think about, so step 1 and step 2 has been thought about, and I'm sure even step 3. So, man, they're running and gunning. This is not willy-nilly what's next. I feel like this whole thing is planned out, and it's playing right in front of us.
Well, some would say
it's a beautiful thing to watch.
It's a little bit of a Project 2025 going on that they denied outright for like 2 years. It's not direct Project 2025, but you have some signees on there like Tom Homan that knew about Project 2025, pushed for it, signed it, and then Trump denied Project 2025 for a little while. I'm not saying it's policy right now, but it's looking like we're headed that way, and I'm not opposed to it.
Yeah, I didn't read that.
I haven't really read into it too much, but at surface level,
in clips,
looks good to me, man.
I read the table of contents, and it looks really good.
It's too much reading, especially after Trump denied.
What is it, like 900 pages?
It's a lot. Might have to funnel that one into a Chat GPT or something, get a little summary on it.
Yeah.
But we talking about the new Trump administration, the new picks. Let's kind of compare and contrast.
Let's do that. But I'm so curious to ask y'all one more question.
Go ahead.
When it comes to, you hear the Democrats talk about, they're sending back all these folks. It's not criminals and all. I put that blame squarely on Biden because they all over here to begin with. There was no.
I would say.
So that's on the previous administration. It's not. There's going to be casualties.
Well, it's on all the previous administrations. This has been going on since 60s.
But it
65.
Yes, but it ramped up.
It's ramped up for sure. But when we're looking at, especially looking at it repealing was Article 14, birthright citizenship. That is a consequence of Article 14 is having so many non-Americans, let's say, they're citizens, but it's not in the same vein. And so we've had an influx of illegals to have anchor babies in the United States, not just Mexico and not just the last administration. Yes, it's ramped up in the last administration, but we need to hold the standard across the board for Republican administrations and Democrat administrations. The number that we've been fed on illegals being in the United States for a while now is something like somewhere between 11 to 30 million.
You think it's accurate?
No, absolutely not.
It's more?
Absolutely. I think the number is probably closer to 60 to 80 million illegals, which is absolutely insane to think. Like think about how many people are in America, and then think about how many illegals there are. If there's 330 million Americans or people in America, let's say, almost a third of those, we could call it a fourth of those people in America are illegal. Like that's a mind-blowing number to me. And that doesn't happen in 4 years. It doesn't happen in 20 years. It's been an ongoing thing for 40, 50 years.
You're absolutely right. But I do think that Rodney has a point where the amount, so if there's 80 million, that means 4 years ago there were 70 million. And 10 million came in the past year. That's the projected numbers, I believe. And with that being said, though, I think this is I'm going to be a little critical of Trump here. In his first term, because if you remember, before Trump came on the scene, Republicans would talk about illegal immigration, but that was not the main focus. That was not the platform they were running on. Trump made that his platform, and the radical left, they, of course, had this whiplash reaction to the extreme opposite. And Trump, and I'm not saying it's all Trump's fault. It's not because he was lazy or anything. He got a ton of pushback in his first term, even from the right wing. But because of that, he was not able, and I do hold him a little bit responsible, but he was not able in his first term to effectively solve the problem enough to where once he lost, then the adverse effect was that's why so many illegals came in, because the left wing was invigorated to do the opposite. Mm-hmm. They were invigorated and inspired to defy Trump by letting all these people in. That wouldn't have happened if he didn't run on it. I'm not saying he shouldn't have run on it. He should have, but he should have been more committed. I think there is things he could have done to make sure the wall came up, and I hope he does that this time.
You think about that, though. He was at such a disadvantage because all of his opposition, most of those had been in Congress forever. This was all new to Trump. So I'm sure he was feeling his way, and there was many things, quite frankly, and this is not a criticism, that he didn't know procedurally how to do. I mean, it takes a little time to learn, but today he's loaded for bear, man. Mm-hmm. We're gonna see some differences, I'm convinced.
Yeah, I think so. The loading for bear is taking shape for the last 2 weeks. We've had a lot of hearings going on with a lot of nominations. Where do you want to start? I guess let's go through the list. Let's compare and contrast some of the nominations that we've seen in the cabinet in the last 2 weeks to the Biden administration that have been on their way out. Before we jump directly into it, let's take a look at this. What you looking at here, Rodney? What you got for me?
So I did ask that this slide be included because there's not a more contrast that you could possibly have. To our right, we see RFK, and to me, he's a very interesting guy in many, many ways. Of course, he was running for president on the Democrat nominee, and you think he had friends on both sides, but I think he's an individual thinker, and some of the stuff he says is a little bit out there, but I buy into most of it. And I'll go back to a very common phrase, and it'll come from an extraordinary philosopher back in the day called Ric Flair, and that is, you got to walk the walk. Who was walking the walk in that illustration there? I can't even remember the former secretary's name, but what a contrast difference you see here. One was just put into place because of DI. The other one was put in place for real change. And I think that is the underlying topic of the whole administration. We put people in here to saddle up and go. We didn't put people in here to fill a spot. This here was obviously the former administration to fill a spot, to look good. This guy here is gonna make some things happen.
Josh, I know you got a lot of objections.
Not real. I'm
not RFK, but just in general. So where do you stand on RFK?
On RFK, I don't really have a problem with him. I definitely think he's an inspiring guy, and his name, RFK Jr., the Kennedys, it carries a lot of weight. Like even me, I'm 27. I was born in 1997. The Kennedys were not really relevant at any point in recent memory. But it's like hearing the name George, like Washington or Lincoln. Like if a descendant of Lincoln around today came on the scene and still had that name, it'd be kind of crazy. And that's kind of how it felt to me to have like basically a name, a family that will forever be etched into the American lore to kind of come back on the scene, and especially running on the Democratic ticket against Donald Trump as a moderate Democrat was very cool to see. And it made me go like, if it were like, they should have gone with him. If the Democrats wanted to win, they should have gone with him, because he's not going to appeal to the freaks, but at the end, if he were the nominee, the freaks are going to vote for him. Yeah. So I like him. I know there's a big focus on health these days, and I like where his head's at. I think he's going to take us in a good direction.
Yeah. You said your age in those days, it really wouldn't have been a recognizable figure. And I don't know the average age of Congress, but surely it's up there. I'd say well above
92.
55.
92 average age.
And so all those certainly know the history, and may be just a tad intimidated by a man like him. So I see him definitely getting. I think he's got one.
Well,
more
not only
here,
know the history,
right?
I think Nancy Pelosi. There was some pictures floating around with her and JFK and RFK Sr. Not too long ago.
here
I
we
mean,
go.
she was in Congress back then.
You got it.
She
You
looked
got-
kind of good back then. Let's be real.
Oh,
You
you know
saw
she's
those-
an attractive woman, but that's
man.
where it ends. I mean, obviously she looks attractive and probably in her younger days, but there's nothing else appealing to me.
I guess RFK, man, as long as he stays in his lane with the health stuff, I think we're good to go. You know, as maybe some of the environmental stuff he's good on. Outside of that, I mean, at the end of the day, he is a Kennedy Democrat. That's what they are, and they've come to the Republican Party. You know, we can name names like Elon, Tulsi Gabbard, these people that have left the Democrat Party and come to the Republican Party. This idea of a big tent, I think, will have a lot of implications going forward politically. You know, there's definitely a realigning going on right now. We called Pendulum Podcast. Well, the pendulum is swinging. That's what we're doing, and the question is going to be how far. And then once it's swung, where does it split? Because this Big Ten umbrella Republican Party, I don't think can last.
Okay, so you don't think the Big Ten can last, which I agree with, and I wanted to ask about that because, like, an example I give is 10 years ago. Public Enemy, well, maybe not the worst, but like one of the arch nemesis of your average conservative was Bill Maher. You know, he was a entertainer and political commentator, and you know he was on TV a lot. You would see him a lot. Nowadays, because of how crazy the left has become, because of Donald Trump and the reaction to him, that Bill Maher is almost seen as like a you know, it's kind of baby terms here, but a good guy now because he's more moderate compared to the others. Conservatives are willing to break bread with him. But my concern is a big part of the reason that things got this bad in the first place is because of Bill Maher. Bill Maher, at the end of the day, is still an atheist liberal. And him being there, you know, he can criticize the transgenders and how crazy they are, but he can't deny, and maybe of course he will, but he can't deny his role in getting us to that point. And so that's why I'm less concerned about conservatives accepting RFK Jr. than Bill Maher, obviously, but I kind of fall into that camp where I'm like, I'm glad he's here, but let's keep an eye on him. Does it make sense?
Ronnie, you've been up there. You hear talk from some ex-congressmen or some people that have spent time on the Hill. One that comes to mind is Madison Cawthorn. But these people all run together. Is that split of Democrat and Republican up there? Is that an issue? How does that work? Is RFK now actually shunned from the Democrat Party, or are they going to be breaking bread? Is Tulsi Gabbard shunned from the Democrat Party? Is she going to be breaking bread?
No, I in politics, you align. You can't keep one foot and side and one side out. It's a complete alignment. Otherwise, you'll get destroyed. You'll get eaten up by both of them. So I think you do have to, you have to choose your side and you run with it. I don't think I went to a book signing 2 weeks ago up at Victor's. That's a local restaurant in Florence, South Carolina, for our out-of-state listeners. And John Napier, who was a federal judge, but he was a congressman. And he's just such a statesman, speaks so eloquently, and I don't know of a better man. But in his book, it's called Crossing the Aisle. And the days of crossing the aisle, guys, are gone. I don't. That's who I am completely. I mean, I'm a Republican, and I won't apologize for my beliefs, but I still believe in, extending that hand on certain. I think that's non-existent now. You simply don't see it. You get killed back home in your elections if you show any weakness today to work with the other side. I mean, that's just reality. That's the reality I see.
I think it's a good thing now, though, based on how radical they are. I think it's necessary.
Josh, great point. And I know you have Christian values, and I do too. Absolutely, I think it's a good thing because the pendulum did swing too far left, and we're straightening it in momentum. And I mean, this is the best chance that we change everything. Right now, it's so significant in history. I know every modern day person says that, but I believe it's so significant now that we change the course of a more ethical, more moral, let me say it, not ashamed, Christian values that really served us well for many, many generations.
I think that's a topic we need to kind of address. Maybe do a little research, come back next week, and make that one of the topics. Is this idea of not being able to work across the aisle anymore? I know back in the '80s, we had Reagan, and there was a lot going on then where there was a lot of unanimous decisions on where the country should go moving forward, and there's been polarization going on. And the Big Tent Republican Party is going to dominate. And so
you're worried about the split in the Republican Party, right?
It's inevitable. Yeah. I think it's inevitable.
Well, I do hear that.
Especially with, I'd like to do a little bit of a video on it, but it basically boils down to America first and the definition of America first. And, I really haven't picked your brain on this. I think I know where you would fall, but you have people like the ostracized now Vivek Ramaswamy, Elon, some of those Silicon Valley guys that say America first, but what they really mean is GDP first. What they really mean is economy first, capitalism first. Mm-hmm. And what I think Trump is more leaning towards, and which I appreciate, and then some others is like, let's say Tucker Carlson or some of the more notable voices that don't have actual political positions. Maybe you might say Mike Lee. They advocate for an American first position, mm-hmm. where Americans are put first outside of just purely GDP and the economy. I don't know where you fall on that one.
1,000% America first, but Josh would be, I'd love to hear him, because Josh is part of a very popular broadcast here in our city, and you entertain these calls all the time. Would you say, most of your listeners are hardcore American first? Where does your audience lie? You're the best litmus test.
That's a little Generation Z in him too.
It's a good question, and it depends, because like Zeb was saying, a lot of these guys like Vivek Ramaswamy and Elon Musk, what they really mean by America first is GDP first. And when you're talking about Wake Up Carolina and that show, it's a radio broadcast, and it's just a simple fact that the vast majority of radio listeners are elderly, or they're the boomer generation, maybe late Gen X, millennials, probably fewer of them, but they have the sort of Reagan mentality. The truth is that our brains basically, we become who we are in our mid-20s. And the rest of your life is almost viewed through the lens of your mid-20s. And with the people that are now in their 60s, they were in the 20s, they're in their 20s during the Reagan years. And so their entire lens is viewed through that. And what was going on at that time? You had a consolidated media. They may have even back then had the appearance of unbiasedness.
Great point. Really, I never thought about it like that.
Right. So they're still watching something like Fox News today. And what Zeb and I agree on is we're afraid that basically the message of America first, which we would say is putting Americans first. And even a lot of them believe that. But the people at the top, the people that are really funding this kind of talk, they're slipping in these little things with it that aren't really America first. Like Vivek Ramaswamy. He comes out, he's like, we need to close the border, we need to be against all this illegal immigration. We agree with that. But he says, but what we do want is vast amounts of high-skilled labor coming here legally. Sounds good. But what is Vivek talking about? He's talking about, he's in tech. He's in pharmaceuticals. He's talking about importing vast amounts of Indians like him into this country. And, this is not like a bigoted type thing, but what would that do to the current American population? If you go on Twitter, I've seen plenty of videos of this where there's young white Americans that are being passed over in their applications towards places like Harvard. They pull up their credentials, all their extracurriculars. They're amazing things. and they can't get. It shows that I'm thinking of one video in particular. This young man, he applied to like Harvard, MIT, basically all the Ivy League schools in America, and even some of the like ones that aren't considered Ivy League but are still hard to get into. He couldn't get into any of them. And I'm like, okay, I'm sure there's more qualified people than him out there, but he can't get into any of these. Well, who are they giving these positions to? And who's getting passed over for these tech jobs? I don't think that's America first.
Yeah, I think there's a displacement going on, whether it's legal or illegal immigration. You know, some would call it replacement, me being one. But is this the first time you kind of looking at this split that we're kind of talking about, this idea of economy first, capitalism greatest thing to ever be created, and then the American first, where we want to protect a future for our children is essentially what it is.
So, you know, I've pondered on it. I hadn't sat down and discussed it with anybody, but of course it always...
we kind of throwing this on you right now off the top of your head.
That's okay. That's okay. I mean, I think there's a lot of different variables. You know, me, I would be one of those looking through the lens of back at Reagan and the way how things were done, and we're in totally different environment now. So I think truly, let me throw it back on you. You guys are going to be one that shapes this movement. I mean, you just are.
Yeah, I think we are too, but it's hard because we can use a derogatory term if you want to call it that way, but the boomers will not give over the keys to the kingdom. They won't let it go.
Yeah.
So here's going to be your challenge.
And so we're fighting a war on two fronts.
I hear you, but how are you guys going to assemble your age? We assembled. I know this sounds very elementary, but honestly, we assembled by watching the 6 o'clock news. That's all I had to do, and I knew everything, and I got accurate information. You guys, there's just so many ways to get your information. I mean, what do y'all settle on? What is the driving force for you young folks? I mean, certainly podcasts, but I mean, there's millions of them out there. We tuned in. We all tuned in at, well, actually 6:30, my age, and we got everything that.
Why did you tune in at 6:30 at your age to the TV?
Because I was interested in what was going on in the world, and that was where you got your information.
Here's why
one source.
Here's why I think it was that. You know, there was more sources. You know, you have your newspaper and some other things.
Well,
the speed
it was
at
the AP,
the
so it all
speed
aligned.
The speed at which the medium is able to deliver the information is the defining factor. And so the answer to your question is Twitter. Or X. As long as Elon allows us to post things without banning everyone for not breaking TOS, Twitter is going to be that defining factor.
Is that y'all's primary source?
He's not. I am. But the speed at which information is able to pass through Twitter is insane. I mean, it's seconds within it happen.
I do agree, though. It is the platform. I'm kind of new to it myself. It was hard for me to break
I'm on Twitter,
into.
But I don't use it that often at all.
Yeah, but I think
I'm just saying there's nothing there to bring you guys all together.
Yeah, it's coming. I think it's coming. There's a lot of like reverberation.
We heard one voice. Y'all hear 1,000 voices.
Which
is really, I mean,
it has its advantages,
yeah.
but also its disadvantages. You're right.
There's reverberations between J.D. Vance's showing on Fox News and some of his, I think it was on 60 Minutes, and a couple of other ones that have reverberated a lot of what Catholic and Reformed and Orthodox Twitter has been pushed in the last little bit. It's a very much a echo of the Twitter space that exists right now and is very lively. I think it's moving forward. Just like America First, there's a lot of quarrels. There's a lot of quarrels within the who defines Christian nationalism, just as who defines America First. And I think moving forward, the person that is going to define that is we don't know yet. I got a couple books over here, and some names would be like Stonequire or Stephen Wolfe, or you got Doug Wilson throwing his hat in there. But to agree on that is going to be difficult without let's call them a catalyst.
Well, see, you guys are shaped by 1,000 opinions. I mean, that's another way of saying what I just said a while ago. And you said there's some advantages to that. There is. However, at my age, do y'all even know the name Walter Cronkite?
Yeah.
We heard Walter, and what Walter said was the gospel. There was no, I mean, he didn't even use adjectives. It was a matter of fact. And so we got what I felt like was a true message. You guys are bombarded with conspiracy theories, with actual people on site, but I just don't know how you do it. You guys,
Well,
I don't know how you form your opinions almost.
If you're asking for will there be a person like Donald Trump, I think Donald Trump was a huge catalyst and a perfect example of one, but he's getting old. Like if you watch him compare, like he's not as bad as Biden was, clearly, but he's lost some steam. And I think to carry the message into the future, this is where we may part ways a little bit. They're trying to put forth J.D. Vance. But who do I mean by they? It's kind of like what Zeb said. The boomers, I think, don't want to hand the reins over. And I know when you hear a young person say that, it may come across as arrogant, it may come across as whatever. But there is some truth to that, because what's one of the things that we're even talking about on the conservative side? All these 90-year-old guys in office. And the problem is not that they're white guys, it's that they're 90 years old. and they don't want to relinquish the reins of power. And this is something I was talking about with him. You can see the boomer fingerprints all over J.D. Vance, and I'd say it's because he's young, but he's got like baby face. You know, he seems like a kid almost, even though he's like 30, 40 something. That like to the boomers, that's why he appeals to them so much, is because he seems like they want to make sure the future is certain. But it can't be someone that they see as a peer. It has to be someone that they view as a child. That's why I think they like J.D. Vance so much.
Thank you for doing something for me a while ago, because my most hated word in the English dictionary, and it's one that conspiracies use all the time, but you clarified it as they. Who in the Hades is they?
Well,
but
it changes.
There you go.
It changes by the day. It changes by the day. It changes by the hour. It just depends on what we're talking about.
Contextual.
I frustrated her to death. She says, "Well, they." I said, "Who? TikTok?
Who is they?"
They is TikTok.
To quote a famous rapper, who is they?
Who is that? Who rap? Who's that?
Who's Kanye? Kanye.
I kind of had to think about it for a second.
I thought it might have been. See, I'm an MC Hammer guy. Not really, but that would be
DMX.
Let's see if we can knock some of these out. You know, we touched on RFK, a little bit of Pete Hegseth. I got and the press secretary. I got a couple more listed here. You know, we talk about. I mentioned Tulsi a second ago, talking about transferring from Democrat to Republican. How do you feel about her?
I can buy into her. And
Bet you can.
There's a common theme. There's a common theme through these nominees.
I'm thinking intellectually. No, here's been what I've been impressed with, and I know we're talking about her individually, but there's a common theme. Every one of these, they have their own mind. They subscribe to Trump's agenda, but they're unapologetic. What have we been saying for years? When we get the Senate and when we get the House and we've got the executive, it's time to go play ball. What did we do last time? We didn't do anything. So I think there's so much emphasis. All right, we got it one more time. What are we going to do with it? And I think Trump was genius by picking all these entrepreneurs, so to speak, or whatever you want to call them. They're not usual suspects. Most of them's fairly young, and again, they're stallions. I'd love to have a football team with these folks here. I think they've got all the qualities. They got strength, they've got speed, they got intelligence, and man, I'm excited. I mean, I'm excited.
Yeah, you say unapologetic. I think that's what it takes to win.
It does,
and winning is more.
Winning
correctly is more important than anything, especially right now. But I have a general disagreement with women in politics, and I think Josh would agree with me on that one. So, Tulsi, you know, what you got?
I think all politicians should be women. Well, look,
blonde.
I don't want to get anyone here in trouble, but yeah, I'm generally against it. But with Tulsi, like, what's even like something she's done recently that people like so much? You know, I think like because she ran against Biden 4 years ago and she was moderate, she's like the JFK of 2020. You know what I mean? And so people think about that and that resonates with them. But again, I don't know enough about Tulsi Gabbard to have an opinion, but I would put her kind of in that same skeptical box that I put Bill Maher in. Why was she running for Democrat? Or does she just look good to conservatives now by comparison? Would they feel the same way about her that they feel now if it were 10 years ago?
Or
and I just haven't done a deep dive.
Was it a token?
Right. Yeah.
You know, I don't know.
I don't either. And that's my thing is I haven't looked into her that much. But like if she doesn't get confirmed, I could take it or leave it.
Same here.
I think Hegseth was the kind of the canary in the coal mine there. If he got confirmed, I think everybody else is going to follow. You know, kind of in that same vein of Democrat to Republican, a little bit of a rhino action here. Would you classify Marco Rubio as a rhino?
I don't think so.
You don't think so?
No.
Really?
Yeah, I don't think so. Now I don't have any strong thoughts on that, but I don't think I'd classify him as a rhino.
He's got some. I don't know if I would.
I don't
call
know if
him
rhino's
a rhino.
the right word.
He's got some questionable.
He's an America
positions.
firster in name only.
So here's what a rhino is.
Yes.
So here's what a rhino is. It's somebody. It's whoever you talk to that is less Republican than you. That is a rhino. I mean, it truly is. Why?
That's true.
Anyone to the left of you is a rhino. Anyone to the right is a Nazi. That's how it goes, isn't it?
I don't even know. Let me ask you guys: is dino such a term? Is there Democrats by name only? They don't even use that, do they?
Well, you would say. Would you say
back to your point
RFK
earlier,
and Tulsi
there's
are
a possibly
dinos?
split for us right there. Half of us are rhinos and half of us are hardcore. The Democrat Party doesn't have that, you know. So I think it's so defeating to call people rhinos. I've seen it over and over. It's
definitely useful though.
It's that person.
You can't tell me that. What's the Romney lady's name?
Oh man,
Utah. Anyway, you know, people like that. They are Republican in name only, you know, because they have maybe they have a little bit of legacy and they're kind of riding on that wave. But there's definitely a split. I don't know. I think you did make a good point there. You know, anyone to the left of you is a rhino. Anyone to the right is a Nazi.
Even if it's that.
Even if it's a little bit.
I'm gonna walk out of here before y'all.
I'm a little.
Say, hey, I didn't know Rodney's a rhino.
Rodney's a rhino. He's a moderate. Get him out of here.
I don't think you are. I think when we say rhino about him, it's kind of like I just said. I think what we mean is he's America first in name, America firster in name only. Where, like, and this was my criticism of J.D. Vance even before he became the VP, was he came out against Donald. He was a pro-Obama guy when Trump came on the scene. He voted for, I forget the guy's name, like McMullen or something. He was like a CIA candidate. And to me, like, and now he's all in on America first. Is it because he had a change of heart, or because it's going to make him the vice president? You know what I mean? Yeah. And that's kind of how I feel about Marco Rubio. I mean, he ran against Trump, you know? Yeah. And like, I don't think Marco Rubio is the Antichrist.
So make no mistake, is there some good politicians out there? I don't believe you can blanket any group. So certainly, and I've met some good politicians, but every politician, bar none, has a appetite to go further. So you know, there's no.
I will say Marco Rubio is his own person. He's an independent thinker. Let's say, and you know, he doesn't. It's hard to pin him down exactly. I know he's been moving a lot more towards the Trump thought process lately. So let's keep that on track there.
Well, either you do or you get out of here.
Kash Patel for what's he doing? FBI. What you
Kash Patel.
So you know, immediately you go, well, a foreigner, you know, FBI, or you know, from that. But I watched just a little bit of his, and I was impressed with him. Again, I don't mean to sound like a broken record. Unapologetic. They knew the fire coming in. They didn't stand for it. They stood back strong. They wasn't really apologetic. I mean, a lot of questions they didn't answer, but I support that because a lot of the questions they answered didn't have anything to do with their position. So I didn't watch much of him. I don't know him that well, but on the surface, I was a little bit impressed with what I saw on him.
Yeah, I mean, you've hit on a theme a couple times, unapologetic. I think, again, that's what it's going to take to win, not being politically correct.
Explaining yourself. Look, this is our agenda. We're running with this.
Yeah, we're doing it.
I'm not
we can just do things
Not
now.
asking you for advice.
I would like to see a lot of transparency moving forward, especially in the FBI, CIA operations like that.
I agree with you. I just
you don't think you can get it done?
No, and I'll say this because Rodney, you're not quite on the conspiracy train like Zeb and myself are. But with that being said, the kind of reform that we want to see in the CIA and FBI is extremely radical, and I think that's an even harder time because like convincing half of America to build a border wall, that's easy compared to basically get rid of the CIA and FBI. That's a scary proposition. I don't think that we're going to get that anytime soon.
Abolishing the FBI and the CIA is not like abolishing the IRS. The people won't get on board as well as what you're arguing.
Yeah, exactly. And with that being said, I think Kash Patel, the purpose he serves is he's going to be sensational. They're going to do some reformation with the FBI, and he's going to be the face of that. And it's going to be like popcorn for conservatives, and I'm fine with that. I mean, I don't think it's the kind of stuff we want to see. It's not realistic at this point in time, and it's certainly not going to be under Kash Patel.
I want unredacted files.
So let me be transparent at the risk of looking unprepared. But what was his background? I don't. Was he Patel? What was his background? Do you guys know?
I honestly don't know myself that well.
Yeah, was he a tech guy? Well, I mean,
no, he's law enforcement at some level. I don't even remember. I ain't even gonna Google it right now. But yeah, I mean, he's relatively qualified. I mean, if Pete Hegseth isn't qualified, then Kash Patel is probably in that same vein. No, I don't.
I would exactly. I would want to know why Trump picked him. I mean, that definitely had to be an advisory
I know
thing.
He's been on a lot of interviews and podcasts and kind of pushed towards essentially what we've arguing now is more transparency in the FBI, CIA, just law enforcement realm. So,
yeah, I guess because like when you look at someone like Pete Hegseth, we are all thinking it out loud. Like why did Trump pick Pete Hegseth? Because he saw him on TV and he likes him. Is
that what it takes? Where's my Fox segment at? Send me a Fox segment.
Yeah,
I feel like Trump knows that he has a heavy hand on every one of those, and they won't step out of line. Hegseth, I just thought he was a bit young and a bit inexperienced, but he did handle himself. I did watch some of his hearings, and he did handle himself like a champion. But ultimately. Trump's going to make the call, so there's the safeguard.
Loyalty goes a long way. Maybe. Well, I guess we got two more. Let's knock down Tom Homan. He was the first one to get confirmed, and then started deportations. Man, the numbers aren't where we want them to be, but I think they'll get there. Josh is not as optimistic as I am on that one.
He's got to have the money. He's got to be supportive. He's got to be supported financially.
No problem with Tom, but like I think Tom Homan. First off, we're talking about like Trump's appointments. Borders that's a gimmicky name. Like that's not an official government position, So like we should be talking about him, but
I would say he's director of ICE. Isn't that the title? Yeah, I think that's
okay. So he's director of ICE, but I would say what he's able to do.
Yeah, but Borders R sounds better though.
Borders R does sound better, but what he's able to accomplish, let's not overestimate it. And by that I mean like he's doing good, but like you said, we want him to do better. And I don't think just because he's doing something is not enough to fix the problem. He has to be doing enough. And I'm hoping we get there. It's been 2 weeks. I'm positive. I just hope it continues to go in the right direction.
Yeah. He talks the talk and he looks, look, if I was to draw who I wanted for my border, so it would be him. It really would. And you can tell he's passionate.
Well, he's got that executioner physiognomy. Physiognomy goes a long way with me. He just looks like one of those guys that would have been on.
Whatever that is, it goes a long way with me too.
The way he looks, his appearance.
He's got the look.
He looks like he would play a dude with a massive sword about to chop a dude's head off on like Game of Thrones or something. He just looks like he's ready to deport people.
I'll give you an example. When I first met Ken on Wake Up Carolina, literally the first moment I saw him, because when I read about the show when I was applying for the job, I looked up his history. I saw that he was a former politician. He basically got kind of run out of town. And then when I saw him in person, I was like, this dude was born to be a politician. He just looks the part. You know what I mean? Like you can't get just any Joe Schmo off the street with the correct qualifications to run for something. They have to look it. And Ken's a perfect example of that.
I agree with that. I do.
Last one we'll knock down. An unofficial Elon Musk and Doge Department of Government Efficiency. How much headway do you think they're going to make? How much do you think they can get done? I know a lot of it's got to get pushed through Congress for like defunding stuff like that. How much executive power does Trump have to defund whatever comes across the Doge desk?
Yeah, they give an awful lot of power to the Congress, and so I'm a little unsure individually how much Trump can do. But again, we've got the support of both houses, so he should be able to to push it through. Yeah.
You don't think there'll be too much pushback on defunding some less questionable?
Too much change too quick makes everybody uncomfortable, even people on your team. So it is going to be interesting to see how this progresses. I do think you'll see a little bit of lash back from certain entities. Senator Graham, he lashed back a little bit at a couple of things. I can't recall what they were, but I remember when he came on, somebody texted me, "Can you believe it?"
Old Lindsey's all over the place, man. He don't know where he's at. He's got to wait till his money comes in to make a decision. But yeah, people don't like change, and Josh is very fond of load-bearing walls, so we don't want to tear down too many load-bearing walls too quickly.
That's funny. You're a funny guy.
Load-bearing walls mean the things that hold up the system, or at least the policies and politicians in place that keep things running smoothly. And I
was 2 seconds away from asking you, what does that mean?
Yeah, Ken likes to use the load-bearing walls analogy on his show a lot, and Josh is extremely fond of it.
Let's, I hope I'm not condescending to Ken. More of where he's getting it from, which is what is it, Eric Weinstein?
It's one of the Weinstein brothers.
Man, I'm all for tearing it down. I'm not an anarchist, though. I definitely think we need an ordered government, and I think America is salvageable. But, and this is what I was talking about yesterday, is with someone else. Basically, I think we need to analyze, like you were saying, or you were saying, the problem with immigration wasn't just Joe Biden. It started way before that. So to fix these kinds of problems we're having now, it's not just putting a Band-Aid on the first leak we see. It's like we have to really see what caused the cracks to begin with in the first place and fix those things.
Well, I think that we should just burn the whole building down.
Start from scratch.
Start from scratch, man. Burn the whole building down. Light it with a wick made out of the Constitution. I think that's the best way forward. It's not preferable, but I think that's the only way forward to a new America.
He's been waiting to serve up that line. That was not a spontaneous line.
That was absolutely spontaneous.
He's been waiting to serve that up.
That was absolutely spontaneous.
Yeah, he had that under the table. He was like, "Oh boy, here's my chance."
I can't even read that, and I wrote it.
Bravo, man! Line of the podcast. You got it.
I appreciate it. That was off the dome, though.
We close up.
But yeah, we can go ahead and work on it. How do you think that? I guess maybe we'll get some feedback from the viewers how did the podcast go? What kind of tweaks do I need to make?
Leave
We
us a
got some
comment.
lighting. I know we got some lighting we need to fix. Rodney, what you think about the first go around?
Are we still talking?
We're
to
still
the
talking.
folks?
We're talking to the folks. Talking to folks. Talking to each other. A little bit of candid conversation here.
So anybody who watches this certainly sees that I'm out of my league. I've admired you two guys for some time. I was good friends with Ken, and then I met Josh, and I've yet to hear your radio broadcast, but I will tomorrow. I'll check it out
Me
tomorrow.
too.
But I love the way Ken interacts with you. I can tell right away that he very much values what you have to say in your thought process. And this gentleman here, I've done several things with. I mean, what you see here is a young generation that I'm very happy with. I think we're in good hands moving forward. So I told y'all before coming on here, it's going to be all I can do to keep up with you because you're two very much intellects and you keep up with what's happening, current events. So I just look forward to being a part of this and breaking down future topics. It's been fun. I like the interaction with you guys. Hopefully you guys enjoy it too.
I appreciate it, Josh.
I loved it. I think it, when you first talked to me about doing a podcast, like, it was a while back now, but you mentioned doing one like the two of us, and then you talked about like how you were building the studio and you wanted to bring Rodney on and build a network. And from the moment I first met you, I've always known you were ambitious, but yeah, but like the scope of things and how far it's come in so little time, even I wouldn't have guessed it was possible. But I'm excited to see where this goes.
Yeah. Well, Josh, he spent all his money on this state-of-the-art studio. And look, folks, you're only getting a portion of it, but he's done quite a job.
A little bit of money. I know a lot of it was elbow grease.
And to that point, I know it costs a lot of money. So if you don't mind, chip in with me and let's get him a decent shirt to wear on.
I had to throw this one on, man.
Should have
It'll
seen the
be
one
all right.
before that.
I'll get you a
Yeah, you
whiteboard. I
should
know
have.
you want one. I'll get you a whiteboard.
Yeah, we need to get a whiteboard so we can write things down. But no, I appreciate y'all coming on.
Yeah, thank you.
Hopefully we can keep this thing pretty consistent. Friday, 1:30. Keep it going. Maybe the listeners will tune in pretty often. All two of them. So
That's going to change.
It'll grow.
You're the originals. Keep that in mind for when we're
You can say, I
multi-billionaires.
tuned in when.
That's right.
It'll grow. Give it time. Not too much time, but we'll grow together. And we appreciate y'all coming, sticking around. Let me find the end this thing button, and we will do that.